Chapter 36. Expulsion from Paradise. While some characters in the novel were convinced that time was on their side, and others believed time was running out, time marched on as it always does. After a dusty May in Moscow came a dusty June. In the provincial town of N, a G1 automobile, damaged by a pothole, had been sitting for 2 weeks on the corner of Stepanskaya Square and Tov, Gubernsky Street, periodically engulfing the neighborhood in desperate smoke. From the Stargorod den, the confused members of the Sword and Plough conspiracy emerged one by one, having signed pledges not to leave town. The widow Gritsitseva, a sultry woman, poet's dream, returned to her grocery business and was fined 15 rubles for failing to display a price list for soap, pepper, bluing, and other small goods in a prominent place. Forgetfulness, forgivable in a woman with a big heart. Day before the trial, scheduled for June 21st, the cashier Asakin came to Agafin Shakov, sat on the sofa, and burst into tears. The writer, wearing a bathrobe, was reclining in an armchair, smoking a hand-rolled cigarette. "I'm ruined, Agafin Vassilievich," said the cashier. "They're going to convict me now." "How did you get into this mess?" Shakov asked didactically. "It's because of you, Agafin Vassilievich." "And how am I involved, I'd like to know?" "You confused me, Comrade Shakov. You wrote slander about me. I was never like this before." "What do you want from me, you idiot?" "I don't want anything. It's just that I'm ruined because of your book. The trial's tomorrow, and the main thing is I've lost my job. Where am I going to go now?" "Is it really my book that had such an effect?" "It did, Agafin Vassilievich. It had such a direct effect that I don't even know how it all happened." "Remarkable," exclaimed the writer. He was flattered. Never before had he seen so clearly the impact of artistic expression on the intellect of a reader. It was a pity that this telling incident would remain unknown to critics and the reading public. Agafin ran his fingers through his cutlet-shaped beard and pondered. Asakin dabbed a tear from his eye with a dark handkerchief. "Listen, brother," the writer said in a heartfelt voice. "What's your problem, really? What are you afraid of? You stole. Yes, you stole. You stole 100 rubles, succumbing to the irresistible influence of Agafin Shakov's novel The Flight of the Wave, published by Vassiliev's Thursdays. Edition of 10,000 copies. Moscow 1927, 269 pages. Price in paperback 2 rubles 25 kopecks. I understand perfectly. That's exactly how it was. Do you think they'll give me probation, Agafin Vassilievich?" "Well, that's a given. Just tell them everything as it is. Say, the writer Agafin Shakov is my moral murderer." "How could I dare, Agafin Vassilievich, to disgrace the author?" "Disgrace me? How could I ever betray you?" "Betray me, my dear, it's my fault. I wouldn't cast a shadow on you for anything in the world." "Cast it, my dear, cast a big, broad-leaved shadow. And don't forget to talk about the pornography, about the naked girls. Don't forget about Fenishka. Remember how it's described there." Of course, Agafin Vassilievich, a lush bosom, a healthy blush, and a strong line of the hips. That's it. And Esmeralda, predatory teeth, some kind of line of the hips. "Natasha turned out beautifully in your book. Since I was fired, I read your book every day." "All the better, read it again tonight, and tomorrow tell them everything. Say about me that I'm a demoralizer of society. Say that after my book, a grown man just can't restrain himself. Say it's a captivating book, and that it describes scenes of unspeakable sexual depravity." "That's what I should say." "That's what you should say. Agafin Shakov's novel The Flight of the Wave, don't forget. Published by Vassiliev's Thursdays. Edition of 10,000 copies. Moscow 1927, 269 pages. Price in paperback 2 rubles 25 kopecks. Say that it's sold in all the stores, kiosks, and train stations. You'd better write it down for me, Agafin Vassilievich, or I'll forget." The writer sank into his chair and scribbled a full confession for the embezzler. It mainly included hips, repeatedly mentioned the price of the book, undoubtedly low for such a large number of pages, the size of the print run, and the address of the Vassiliev's Thursdays publishing house, Koshkov Lane, building number 21, apartment 177A. The reassured cashier begged for a new book by Shakov as a parting gift, titled The Tale of Lost Innocence, or In the Struggle Against Negligence. "Now go, brother," said Shakov, "and sin no more. It's not clean." "So I'll go, Agafin Vassilievich. So you think they'll give me probation?" "That depends on you. Put more blame on the book, then you'll get out of it." After seeing the cashier out, Shakov made a few dance moves around the room and hummed. "Beat the tambourines, let the guitars ring." Then he called the Vassiliev's Thursdays publishing house. "Print the 4th edition of The Flight of the Wave. Print it, don't be afraid. This is Agafin Shakov speaking." "Got it," Ostap repeated in a broken voice. "Hold on." Ippolit Matveyevich took the flat wooden box into his trembling hands. Ostap continued to rummage in the chair in the dark. A coastal beacon flashed. A golden column lay on the water and floated after the ship. "What the devil?" said Ostap. "There's nothing else." "Aye, it can't be," stammered Ippolit Matveyevich. "Well, you look too." Vorobyaninov, holding his breath, fell to his knees and shoved his arm up to the elbow under the seat. Between his fingers, he felt the base of a spring. There was nothing else solid. A dry, nasty smell of disturbed dust came from the chair. "Nothing there?" asked Ostap. "No." Then Ostap lifted the chair and threw it far overboard. A heavy splash was heard. Shivering from the night dampness, the concessionaires returned to their cabin in doubt. "Okay," said Bender, "at least we found something." Ippolit Matveyevich took the box out of his pocket. Vorobyaninov stared blankly at it. Come on, what are you gawking at?" The box was opened. At the bottom lay a green, tarnished copper plate with the inscription, "Master Gams begins a new suite of furniture with this armchair. 1865, St. Petersburg." Ostap read the inscription aloud. "But where are the diamonds?" asked Ippolit Matveyevich. "You're amazingly perceptive, my dear chair hunter. As you can see, there are no diamonds." "I can't take it anymore," exclaimed Vorobyaninov in despair. "This is beyond my strength." He was a pitiful sight. His slightly grown mustache twitched, and the lenses of his pince-nez were foggy. It seemed that in despair, he was slapping himself in the face with his ears. "What can you take?" asked Ostap. The cold, rational voice of the great schemer had its usual magical effect. Vorobyaninov straightened his arms along the worn seams and fell silent. "Silence, sadness, silence, Kisa. Someday we'll laugh at the stupid eighth chair in which a silly little board was found. Hold on. There are still 3 chairs left, 99 chances out of 100. Overnight, a volcanic pimple erupted on the cheek of the extremely distressed Ippolit Matveyevich. All the suffering, all the failures, all the torment of the chase for the diamonds, all of it seemed to have gone into the pimple, and now shone with mother-of-pearl, sunset cherry, and blue. "Did you do that on purpose?" asked Ostap. Ippolit Matveyevich convulsively sighed and, tall, slightly bent like a fishing rod, went for the paints. The making of the banner began. The concessionaires worked on the upper deck. And the third day of the voyage began. It began with a brief clash between the brass band and the sound effects crew over a place for rehearsals. After breakfast, burly men with brass instruments and skinny knights of S-Mark's mugs headed to the stern from both sides simultaneously. Galkin was the first to manage to sit down on the stern bench. The clarinet player from the brass band was the second to arrive. "The place is taken," Galkin said gloomily. "Taken by whom?" the clarinet player asked ominously. "By me, Galkin." "And who else?" "Palkin, Malkin, Chalkin, and Zalkind." "Don't you have a yokin? This is our place." Reinforcements approached from both sides. On the right, brass gleamed and tall brass players towered. Thrice girdled by a copper dragon stood the helicon, the most powerful machine in the orchestra. A French horn resembling an ear swayed. The trombone stood in full combat readiness. The sun was reflected 1,000 times in the battle armor. Sound effects crew looked dark and small. Bottle glass flickered there, enema bags shone palely, and the saxophone, an outrageous parody of a brass instrument, a seminal extraction from a real brass tube, was pathetic and resembled a nose warmer. "The Enema Battalion," said the rowdy clarinet player, "is claiming the place." "Siphon like young men," the first bass player remarked contemptuously. "You," said Zalkind, trying to find the most offensive expression, "you, conservatives of music. Don't disturb our rehearsal. You're disturbing us." "You'll disturb you. The less you rehearse on your night vessels, the better it turns out. And on your samovars, rehearse or don't rehearse, nothing will come of it." Having failed to reach any agreement, both sides remained in place and stubbornly played each their own. Sounds rushed down the river that only a streetcar slowly crawling on glass could make. The brass players performed the military march of the Keksham Life Guards Regiment, and the sound effects crew played the Negro dance Antelope at the source of the Zambezi. The scandal was stopped by the personal intervention of the chairman of the Lottery Commission. That day, the ship stopped twice. They stood near Kosmodmiansk until dusk. The usual operations were carried out: an introductory meeting, a lottery drawing, a performance by the Columbus Theater, a balalaika player, and dancing on the shore. All this time, the concessionaires worked up a sweat. The supply manager ran up several times and, receiving assurances that everything would be ready by evening, calmly returned to the performance of his direct duties. At 11 o'clock, the great work was finished. Backing up, Ostap and Vorobyaninov dragged the banner to the captain's bridge. Ahead of them, raising his hands to the stars, ran the chubby supply manager. With a combined effort, the banner was tied to the railings. It towered over the passenger deck like a screen. In half an hour, an electrician ran wires to the back of the banner and attached 3 light bulbs inside it. All that remained was to flip the switch. Head to the right along the bow, the lights of the town of Vasuki were already visible. The supply manager summoned the entire population of the ship to the ceremony of lighting the banner. Ippolit Matveyevich and the great schemer looked down at the assembled crowd from above, standing on either side of the still dark tablet. Every event on the ship was taken to heart by the floating institution. Typists, couriers, responsible workers, Columbuses, and the ship's crew crowded together, craning their necks on the passenger deck. Light, commanded the chubby man. The banner lit up. Ostap looked down at the crowd. A pinkish light fell on their faces. The spectators laughed, then silence fell, and a stern voice from below said, "Where's the supply manager?" The voice was so authoritative that the supply manager, without counting the steps, rushed down. "Look," said the voice, "admire your work." "We're going to get kicked off," Ostap whispered to Ippolit Matveyevich. Ostap, as always, was right. The chubby man flew onto the upper deck like a hawk. "Well, how's the little banner?" Ostap asked brazenly. "Get it." "Pack your things," shouted the supply manager. "What's the rush?" "Pack your things, get out of here." "And how well you do it, chubby." "Get out." What about severance pay?" "You'll be prosecuted, our boss doesn't like jokes." "Drive him away," came the responsible voice from below. "No, seriously, don't you like the banner? Is it really a bad banner?" There was no point in continuing the game. The Scriabin had already docked at Vasuki, and from the ship one could see the stunned faces of the Vasuki residents crowding on the pier. Money was categorically refused. 5 minutes were given to pack. 2 of them were poisoned by Nick Sistrin, who had only just now realized what had happened. He was looking for the missing chair. "Son of a bitch," said Simbivich as the companions disembarked onto the pier. "If they had entrusted the design of the banner to me, I would have done it so that no mayorhold could have caught up with me." On the pier, the concessionaires stopped and looked up. The banner shone in the black sky. "Yes," said Ostap, "the little banner is pretty wild. Miserable execution. The art of madmen, cave paintings, or a drawing made by the tail of a rebellious mule, compared to Ostap's banner, seemed like museum treasures. Instead of a sower scattering bonds, Ostap's mischievous hand depicted some kind of stump with a sugar head and thin whips instead of arms. Behind the concessionaires, the ship blazed with light and thundered with music, and ahead on the high bank was the darkness of a provincial midnight, the barking of dogs, and a distant harmonica. "Let me summarize the situation," said Ostap cheerfully. "Liabilities, not a penny to our name, 3 chairs are going down the river, nowhere to spend the night, and not a single children's commission badge. Assets, a guide to the Volga 1926 edition, which we had to borrow from Monsieur Simbivich in the cabin. It's very difficult to balance the budget without a deficit. We'll have to spend the night at the pier." The concessionaires settled down on the pier benches. In the light of a wretched kerosene lamp, Ostap read from the guidebook. On the high right bank is the town of Vasuki. From here, timber, resin, bast, and matting are shipped, and here are brought consumer goods for the region located 50 kilometers from the railway. The town has 8,000 inhabitants, a state-owned cardboard factory with 320 workers, a small iron foundry, a brewery, and a tannery. Of the educational institutions, besides general education schools, there is a forestry technical school. "The situation is much more serious than I thought," said Ostap. "Getting money out of the Vasuki residents seems to me for now an insoluble problem, and we need no less than 30 rubles. First, we need to eat, and second, we need to overtake the lottery tub and meet the Columbuses on land, in Stalingrad." Ippolit Matveyevich curled up like an old, skinny cat after a fight with a young rival, a boisterous owner of roofs, attics, and dormer windows. Ostap strolled along the benches, thinking and scheming. By 1 o'clock in the morning, the magnificent plan was ready. Bender lay down next to his companion and fell asleep. "How does that sound?"